I'll call the Wednesday, June 22nd, 2022 Nottingham Planning Board meeting to order. Before we begin with we'll get the formalities out of the way with everybody introducing themselves, starting on my right, please.
Sandra Jones, alternate.
Gary Anderson.
Ian McKinnon.
Edward Veal.
Susan Mooney.
Charlene Anderson.
Blair Haney, SRPC.
And Ms. Jones will be seated and voting for Ms. Sanders tonight. So fully participating in voting alternate. We have a couple of cases on the agenda tonight. We'll take them in order as they're listed. The first one is a continued case. It's number 22-002-SUB, an application from Concrete Products of Londonderry requesting to create a 4-lot subdivision. Property is located at 100 Smoke Street, Nottingham, New Hampshire, and identified as map 11, lot 3. Is anybody here for the applicant on that one? Are you the applicant, or
I am the engineer.
engineer? Okay.
The applicant is here as well.
Yeah, all right, thank you. Just a different, if you could, just introduce yourself, when you're at the table, and then, we'll have you go through the updates, on the plans, and then we'll bring it back and go from there.
Sure. So, for the record, my name is Chris York with Millennium Engineering.
My name is George Salmon, representing Shea Concrete.
So the first two meetings, Henry Boyd from our office was here. I was unavailable, double booked at those meetings, so I'm here tonight. I've been working on these plans for the most part with help from Henry, but these plans have changed a bit from the last time. We had originally, the 3 lots were extending all the ways up to the 4 lots were extending all the ways out to the back. But based on some of the zoning requirements, the buildable lot areas, lot 4 wasn't gonna work, so we ended up shortening up lots 1, 2, and 3. Making lot 4 back area to get a buildable contiguous lot area out back here. So we're showing a proposed. We showed the buildable lot area out back. We're showing a proposed shared driveway to run through lot 2 out to the back to lot 4. We're also showing some proposed grading on the front of lots 1, 2, and 3 to show that we can regrade that area to get it under the 25% slopes. That's the quick and dirty update on the plans. I can certainly take any questions, pass it back to the board with any questions.
Okay, I appreciate that. All right, and sorry to back up a sec. So this case has already, the application has already been accepted as complete at a prior meeting. I think we acted on development of regional impact and found that there was none, and so we'll bring it back to staff review first. Mr. Haney, you've had a chance to take a look. I see you've updated some notes. Would you mind going over those, please?
Sure, yeah. It had been a while, so I actually reached out to Chris and spoke to him for a little bit about what we were looking at here, just to kind of jog my memory and walk me through a little bit. And he was kind enough to go over it. The soils plan is the 4th page. That's the one where you see a lot of the changes that he just talked about with regards to the regrading and to sort of flatten out that area up front and create 30,000 square foot contiguous buildable area, which it does look like he achieves. Okay, 1 second here. And then the big thing, he did show you the lot layout, and so they changed that 4th lot that's adjacent to the river quite a bit, and now it's got a big back area, but still has frontage, minimum frontage. There's no point where it falls below the 75-foot minimum width that we like to see, so it does appear to meet that standard. But it does show what they've deemed a shared driveway over lot 2 to get to the back. And the reason doing this, he mentioned was to avoid a wetland crossing. This is like the one dry spot, there to do that.
Yeah,
Well,
it's right in.
So it's understandable, but in all the discussions I've heard you all talk about, it really didn't seem to lend itself to a shared driveway as the board has tended to describe it. Potentially other ways to do this, easements or variances, but shared driveway, as it stands, you all have to make that interpretation. I know we just dealt with another project that kind of pushed the boundaries of a shared driveway, so just think about it in that context. Yeah, and then I just brought up the idea of a back lot for lot 4, if the shared driveway doesn't begin to, if the way it's set up now isn't what works. So, I don't have a lot of experience with how you manage back lots, so it was just something I wanted to put out there. And the one thing that Chris did mention was that the perk tests and the test pits in the 4K area are not shown. So if you do choose to approve this tonight, you should do a condition for that, or grant a waiver, or hold off and not approve and wait till they come back. But
We are scheduled for Friday to go up there and do water test pits
Okay.
in that area. So
yeah. So
Just,
there
just to
are,
let the board know.
yep, there are options here, but those are just a couple things to point out.
Okay, all right. So at that point, I'll bring it back to the board for discussion and any questions or comments, of the applicant. Based on the revised plans. If none, then I can jump in.
If you wanna go first, I have a couple, but I'm trying to think of.
So the first thing, just so I don't lose sight of it, was we had mentioned that the little river in that section falls under the designated river corridor, it appears, with NHDES. So we'd requested that, to make sure that contact was made with the local advisory commission, which would be the Lamprey River Advisory Commission. I don't know if that's occurred, or if they've,
I don't know, I can find out.
as far as I can tell, this portion, from my notes on the map, is not subject to Shoreline Water Quality Protection Act, but it's still a designated river corridor. So from the RSA, it appears that they need to be, at least be notified and have a chance to comment.
What's the name of it? Lampert?
Lamprey River Advisory Commission,
Lamprey,
or, LRAC is the abbreviation, but committee. And then, just to confirm, because obviously the scale is large on these, because of their larger acreage.
Yeah.
The 30K areas are just that squared off area that's showing, like, so on lot 2, it's the area below, between Smoke Street and the wetland, but not including the area beyond the wetland.
Yeah, it goes.
Okay.
Okay, that's, yep.
And same thing with the other lots, it's the same, I could see it kind
Falls
of,
outside all the, the 75-foot setbacks, and it's within the building setbacks.
okay. And then on sheets, I guess it's the very first sheet where it shows a contiguous upland area. I guess in our mind, well, in my mind, it's not, like lot 3 is not contiguous because it's completely separated through non-buildable areas, with the wetlands. So that doesn't necessarily change it since you have your 30K below it, but
Yeah, I was
area-
confused by that too.
the area above it is not really contiguous to this, plan.
Yeah, I done that for lot 4, showing a separate area, I did not do it for lot 3, I can show the two
And
separate.
our requirement is just to show the 30K anyway, if you, I mean, the additional is optional if you wanna call it. I was just a little confused because,
Yep.
yeah, but I get it now, yeah.
And then I think the way this is being drawn now is still, in my opinion, gonna require zoning relief. It's either gonna be, so the way we mentioned a shared driveway is that it has to be kept at the common boundary, which would usually be something like between lot 2 and 3, if they were sharing a driveway. But the way this is designed really is coming out more like a backlot situation. And if it was a backlot, then it would have to, the driveway is supposed to go through the neck
And that's what we just dealt with recently. We had a
Yeah,
proposal for something similar to this, and then,
and if it went through the neck, then that brings
Yeah.
you back over to, back over to this area, but there would be other areas where it doesn't meet the requirements of a backlot, because there's more frontage than our backlot subdivision, calls for.
How does so a backlot would be just a lot with 20 feet of frontage?
this seemed minimum.
So a backlot in our ordinance is for, it's only for lots of record prior to March of '93. So I think this was a lot of record prior to '93. I'd have to go back and look at the dates on it. That have, let's see, less than 400 feet of frontage. So basically, there's not enough to do a standard subdivision. So it's more than 6 acres, but they just don't have 400 feet. So they then are allowed a backlot where one is having less than 200 feet of frontage, and they go from there.
This has
So
239 feet, right?
right. So the total frontage of the parcel is well over the 600. So I don't see it. I think to go through that route would require even more zoning relief and requests. But the main reason for, I think at the last meeting, some pushback from the board is that the way it was originally designed, what was proposed as Lot 4 at that time was almost entirely in the flood zone. It was in the 100-year floodplain, so, and within the designated river corridor, and there's a lot of other, wetlands at the beginning of it and such. So I understand it's a large tract of land, but there's a lot of unbuildable areas, when you look at it, or a lot of critical areas that we look at between the wetlands and then the floodplain. So that was kind of my notes.
Essentially had the same thing. Per the zoning ordinance for minimum requirements of a backlot, I mean, the frontage, I think, excludes it. Kind of in all. And I think because the backlot provision either needs to be shared or, we always look for it to be through the neck, is that would put the driveway, you require a wetland crossing and be almost, the entire driveway would be in the flood zone. And it's a zone A flood zone, so. And then I wanted to also, so I'm seeing the contour lines for some regrading through here. And I guess I'm looking at, if I were to draw a line around all the contours, is in order to do all that, it looks like all those trees, basically every tree would be coming down to obviously regrade the lots, right? Or, save some where possible, but it's almost the entire width of lots 1, 2, and 3 would need to be cleared to then regrade. I think there was some discussion at one of the previous meetings that, because it was an active pit, there's gonna be steep slopes in excess of 25%. And usually, I think my interpretation at that meeting was that it's man-made slopes. Ultimately, it wasn't a naturally occurring steep slope, so that maybe, obviously you can see these stockpiles, is that maybe as long as it can be, and I think one of the attachments kind of showed that whole front area was the active pit area. So I'd say the development there is, maybe there needs to be some individual lot grading to make the houses fit on those lots in this scheme. But I don't think I would see the need to regrade all 3. It just opens up. This lot's quite nice as you come across the river now. There's a lot of, obviously, growth that's come back up. There's some good frontage that's protected by trees that I'd hate to see the whole thing cleared and regraded.
I think that would, I think the intent would be to.
Cleared and made back into a pit.
Not just cleared and, I guess I'd say leveled, but just evenly graded so that there's no steep slopes remaining, but I think it would just be an open, there'd be no existing vegetation to remain between lots. I just think that would,
So are you saying kind of like in this lot, in
kind of leaving all this in the steep slope and only grading kind of where the building envelopes kind of are.
Yeah, I mean,
You're
because you
thinking?
can see through the trees, there's some of the stockpiles, I mean, individual lot owners might decide they wanna pull those down, but it'd be like kinda picking and choosing.
Right,
But I would just, I mean, almost the whole front of lots 1, 2, and 3. If somebody went through and did this contour work, would almost be entirely cleared
yeah,
to then put houses back up,
yes,
which,
that's a good point.
um,
Yeah, the intent wouldn't be to clear cut the whole, the intent was to show that it could be graded to
yeah,
get the slopes down to, you know, a reasonable percentage. I mean, the intent would be to, you know, keep privacy between each of the lots.
okay.
They don't wanna clear cut the whole
Okay.
property.
Yeah, I just look at if I look at the perimeter of the contours, that's just what I was getting from it. And then, yeah, I also noted that the shared driveway didn't, really meet the definition of between the common boundary, which would be lot 3 and 4, not lots 1, 2 to get to 4.
And can it be an easement instead, you know, driveway for lot 4 would still kind of be in the same area, just be an
So we,
easement, or you almost have two, you know, we have two separate driveways ultimately, just run an easement right up the property line. We still like to be able to get out back through this upland area. It's the best spot to get out there.
we ran into that, and there's a question on the I think one of the last back lot, which I think I drove down Guile, I think they actually have that they're clearing that driveway now, but it goes through the neck of the back lot. They did the same, they wanted to do the same thing, cause there was kind of it was harder to construct, cause of the topography on the neck for the back lot, and they wanted to go through essentially their driveway, use the driveway and go through the property and propose an easement, but it would require a variance to do it, cause the zoning does say shared boundary, which it is, you could run a shared boundary, but it's not the shared boundary between the lot you're servicing and another lot. So I mean, I guess the answer is you could, but it would require a variance from the zoning board for some type of easement like that.
Mr. Chairman, I have some comments to make, if I may.
Of course, yep.
Gentlemen, I have a proposal that I would like for you to consider. I don't know how familiar you are with Fish and Game Wildlife Action Plan that has gone through the state a couple of times and prioritized wildlife habitat and wildlife corridors. From the Granite, Granite, out of UNH. This is an image of your proposed development. It's in the magenta area, and this is highest ranked in state by New Hampshire Fish and Game. The green areas are supporting landscape for wildlife corridors. Here is Smoke Street, and here is Little River, right here. It's only shaded lighter just to show the outline of your property. Another image from Granite and from the Wildlife Action Plan shows wildlife prioritized habitat blocks in green, and that's all of this, and then the supporting structure in gold. So Lot 4 really has all the bells and whistles for habitat, for wildlife habitat and corridor. It would be interesting if you would consider putting Lot 4 into conservation. Lots 1, 2, and 3, their values would increase enormously because they abut conservation land. The land would still have value, even though it's in an easement of about $1,000 an acre that could be sold to somebody in fee, but they just couldn't build on it. On the positive side, you wouldn't have any need to build driveway infrastructure or go for variances to put access to that back area, which I told the other fellow when he came in with his application, that I and another conservationist had walked this property years ago, looking for invasive species on behalf of the owner. And we didn't find any, but we were stunned by the beauty of the back area and the riverine habitat. It's like a cathedral out there. So I'm just asking you to consider the possibility. There are agencies that would be very interested in putting this in conservation. And you could break even, or even better. Thank you.
I had one more that was, have you guys, I know that obviously it's the flood zones have been mapped.
Yeah.
Because there's zone A, do we know what this corridor's flood elevation is? Have we, the base flood elevation? I didn't see it in the notes, and I don't know, I know it's not always listed on the panel map.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head. I can check it.
Okay.
I don't recall there being an elevation associated with it, but
I assume there's gotta be one for the Little River somewhere, I guess I don't know how close it would be to the property. I'd just be curious, cause that kind of plays into, if you look, obviously there's great topography here, so we could be able to tell pretty quick how much of the land would fall as undevelopable in that mine from the flood zone. Obviously, it doesn't follow the flood line, cause that crosses about 20 feet variation of topography.
I just wanted to comment on the test pits, as Blair had brought up already. I think that definitely the lot 1, 2, and 3, and I couldn't, go along with a waiver, but I think, conditional to have a second test pits done. But my question really is on 4, 2, if that actually goes the way it's suggested, it doesn't appear that single test pit is in the buildable area at all, unless I'm looking, some misunderstanding something there.
talking about this, or,
Is that the one you said you have it scheduled to do?
yeah, we have a schedule on Friday, we don't have any actual test pit shown yet, I kind of just showed
Oh, I
it.
see.
4K septic area, just graphically, assuming
I see.
it would work out well out there.
I just had, some comments too. One, that lot 4, in the driveway access to it is, a bit concerning and not really staying standard with the way that, our development, subdivisions, like to go, to have a driveway run the perimeter of through somebody's property, is, not really staying to kind of our master plan, vision and goals of Nottingham. I think this does need to go to Lamprey River, Advisory Committee, and they did a study, back in 2018, a bat study of several properties, several locations in Nottingham, and one was, pretty much right along the Little River, and found, 3 endangered species bats, in this area, so, I think their input will be important to this. And then I think the other thing is, has the fire chief commented on this, or have we seen anything?
I sent it to the fire chief.
Yeah.
If I didn't send you anything, it's because he had no comment. I'll double check my notes, but usually if I don't send it to you guys, it's just he doesn't have it.
I do think we typically like to see a note, as to the closest, fire cistern, which there is one
It's a dry
pretty much
hydrant.
right down the street from this, but maybe just a note of, where the location on the plan of where the closest fire cistern is, which is right there on Smoke Street, pretty much right across the bridge. Or,
I think the fire chief had commented about, if I recall, something on the wrong project, that he wanted the houses sprinkled.
Well,
Kinda throws that on all of them.
Yeah.
It says it's recommended you follow the NFPA,
Suggested.
suggested, yeah, we can't mandate it, but.
I don't even think it's mandated at the state level.
Yeah.
No, no.
However, I think, I won't speak for him, but yeah, the cistern on Smoke Street is fairly close,
Yeah, it's-
proximity.
You could run a hose from it, probably.
Yeah, it's,
Um,
I think you pull out the driveway and it's right there, but,
Right.
yeah, I think we'd just like to have it noted on the plan.
To your point, Charlene, that's, in the current location of the shared driveway too, that's, by the time you get to the actual house, it's gonna be over 1,000 feet back there.
Yeah,
So the length of that as well.
So, yeah, good,
Yeah.
good point.
pretty significant.
I do have some feedback.
From the chief?
Yeah, I just pulled it up. I think it's probably, like you said, it's probably a standard. That's it. Like, just like you guys mentioned, in lieu of installation of cistern, for the subdivision, he recommends fire protection of all residents to be provided by sprinkler system that at a minimum meet the requirements of NFPA standards for installation of sprinkler system. For 1, 2, and, dwelling homes, family dwelling homes, and manufactured.
He didn't put anything to where the location of the cistern is.
I think that's kind of his standard one, that pretty much is
Yeah.
a standard comment.
I was thinking if he had said, well, the cistern is X amount of feet, then you could just plug and play that into the notes, but, yeah. I think that's all I have on my comments. Oh, one other question, I mean, I know the area that you are putting the driveway here through is like that, the so-called one dry area on the property. I was surprised that in the wetlands study, cause I would imagine if you look at the plan that was proposed for the gravel pit, it was actually kinda, and you look at it, it's showing that phase 2 was a dump, stump dump site, and I suspect that wetland probably did go across, but was probably filled at some point in time. And it looks like you're proposing a little bit of regrading on that area too, or bringing in some fill in that area.
Yeah, just to get by that, just to get through that area.
Mr. York, Mr. Lemieux has, an attachment for the Wildlife Action Plan sheets that he can send to you if you wish.
Okay.
Thank you, Kevin.
I can't remember if it was clarified before either. During the wetland delineation, I don't see any notes on it, but were any vernal pools, noted that you're aware of?
No, I'm not aware of, no. We have some areas of, very poorly drained soils, and no vernal pools.
And then the only other thing that's kind of like, more of a minor consideration, you know, it seems like you're trying to keep the lots at 5 acres for 1, 2, and 3, which is, by having that kind of like, the section of lot 2 that kind of becomes a triangle that's isolated by itself, maybe I think I'd rather just see the regular, you know, rectangular shape of that line going straight through, and that being part of lot 1, and, lot 2 having, you know, not having this section that kind of goes off, that's gonna be, if the proposed driveway went through variance and everything else, then that's gonna be kind of like a area that's just cut off from lot 2 anyhow, by the driveway.
And then lot 1 would abut the, conservation property in the back for more money.
I think I'll just say that, I think currently, there's consensus, I think, that the driveway as the plan is drawn, there would be relief needed from the zoning board for the driveway to get access to lot 4, because I think obviously if you access through the neck of the property, almost unconstructable because of some of the slopes along the little river there, and it's entirely in the flood zone, that, I know at the last meeting, the lots have changed, but there was kind of the end of that discussion at the last meeting was, you know, even though we have the frontage for 4 lots, this property really is trying to push itself towards 3 lots, because that 4th lot is always going to be some funky shape with needing to get creative with the shared driveway or trying to use the neck, just because of the shape of the little river there. So that's kind, I mean, I'm still kind of leaning towards lot 4 is, there's a lot of things going on with lot 4, and you're getting 1,000 feet back off the road with constructively. I get why the shared driveway is shown where it is, or the driveway's shown where it is, because that's where you'd want to construct it, but it would need relief. And I think it was kind of stated at the last meeting that if it was a 3-lot subdivision, it would just, I think you'd make every lot better, and it'd be perfectly buildable lots, because they can all provide the 30K up front. I guess it's still my belief that it's just trying to squeeze a little bit too much out of it with the 4 lots, and you need zoning.
Yeah, to go through, obviously, to go through any other area on lot 4, proposed lot 4, it's through, it would require a lot more, zoning relief, because you'd be going through, like wetlands. Then you gotta-
Conditional use permit.
Dredger fill goes through that. The whole flood zone is considered unfit for building, and then obviously there's just, again, a lot of wetlands, and the flood zone on this property makes it a lot more difficult to do just a standard subdivision, and it's an aquifer protection district and the stream protection district. So we've got kind of a lot of things going on. If it was to be pushed through as a 4-lot, as a 3-lot, I think it's a lot easier, because you've got your areas, and potentially, depending on how it would be designed, acreage could be sufficient on at least a couple of them, where the potential future owners could have a current use type of situation with enough acreage, I think, because I think it's 10 acres, so 12 acres, I think they have to do current use,
12
but.
to 10.
Yeah, 12, yeah, 2 plus 10.
Well, I mean, I think too, I mean, the lot 3 is not a very good lot either, because, I mean, a good part of it is, or not a good part of it, but at least a quarter of it is flood zone. And, just, and just the amount, the amount of wetlands. I mean, it almost seems to me is kind of take that whole flood zone area right out of the picture, and that back lot on lot 4, and take it out. And, your minimum acreage is 3 acres, so, you could reconfigure those 3 lots, still meet the requirements, and have I think a much better, parcel of property in which it's, one, protecting the critical nature of that land, and then still be able to put, the houses, on kind of what's more of really the buildable lot, because if I was lot 3, it's a little, I know you've got kind of the buffer in there, but it's a little concerning, just given, the excessive, changes in how we go from drought to flood. And that seems to be the way of, the world is going into. Yeah.
And an additional comment I'd like to make about that shared driveway or access to lot 4, between lots 1 and 2, is going to detract from the desirability of lots 1 and 2 if people are just driving back and forth. They lose that back privacy that they.
It's gonna
would
create
enjoy.
neighbor wars. It's I wouldn't want someone driving through my lot all the time. It's gonna.
Night with headlights or whatever, and
It's
just
gonna,
noise.
put a fence up if you're gonna do it, because that's gonna be the best neighbor, because that's just, again, it's not going into kind of the vision of Nottingham and the master plan of Nottingham, and when we look at this, it's, not appealing.
Bear Paw Regional Greenways has, put easements on, the North River at the behest of landowners, and they've gone as small an acreage as 11 acres to protect. And they would, I'm sure, be very pleased to have some conversation with you folks to help protect this little river corridor in some way, whether they are interested in helping you with a conservation easement or looking for other avenues of protection that would also assist you in your development. They would do that. Do you have contact information?
I don't.
Kevin can probably get it.
Yeah,
If I
yeah,
pass it
Bear Paw
through-
Regional Greenways.
Pass it through Kevin.
I'm sorry, which one was it?
Bear Paw Regional Greenways. They've been involved in several riverine corridor protection projects here in Nottingham.
Right.
And they also own in fee the property directly across from this building, right along the North River. They have, 40 acres or so, and they put in a trail system. Very nice, open space.
I mean, one area we haven't explored, when you mentioned actually the words open space, is the acreage here would probably push into could potentially push you towards an open space development, but then you'd be going into much smaller lots. You want to get more lots out of it, but if that was something that would be more palatable and more marketable, and say you stuck with 3 lots and cut the acreage down for those, and then made the rest of that open space is a selling feature. We do have an open space ordinance, but again, that's something that would be
Completely different layout,
Com-
but potential.
Yeah,
potentially. I mean, it potentially would just be bringing the lot lines down to more where, below that wetland area,
That wetland area.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could do that.
yeah,
and then having the rest of it be open space.
and they have enough
But-
acreage to do that too.
I don't know, where, does more acreage become more valuable, or does does abutting like a conservation land or open space that's non-buildable become more marketable? And, again, that's a applicant decision, not mine, so.
That wouldn't get us more lots necessarily, it would just get us,
Yeah, we,
Still need
Smaller
a yield, you
lots
still
at
need a
least.
yield plan to prove out the lots,
a lot of the incentive in Nottingham for an open space is usually, the smaller lots, meaning a lot less utilities and a lot less, infrastructure costs going into it, and everything to develop it. Underground utilities and all those fun things that get required. Is there anything else from the board? If not, we did continue the public hearing too. I just wanna make sure that, if there's anybody here for the public hearing that would like to speak for or against the application, please come up. All right, seeing none, we'll just close that, just a formality, but just like to make sure. So I guess where we are now, I don't know if you're looking for, direction from us or more direction. I think, again, what I'm hearing from up here is, it seems like this really, based on the constrictions of the lot with where it is, what it is, it's really leaning itself towards a 3-lot. The proposed 4-lot would have to go to zoning for, relief for lot 4 for the common driveway. The driveway not being on a common boundary, it is going through what's technically considered an unfit for building area of the wetland setback. And then, we still need to make sure that Lamprey River Advisory Commission, Committee, has a chance to provide input, just because of the stream protection district, the shoreland, area designation.
if we did go for a variance for the driveway, and I'm assuming that still means, if they granted the variance, still doesn't guarantee that the planning board would accept it.
It does not guarantee it. No.
Right.
That's what I assume, yes.
And I think, I just think when you look at the definition where it has to be along a shared boundary, the boundary it's shown near is shared by two completely different landowners, so it's gonna be hard. I think some of the variances in the past have been where, because of constructability, like say there's a stone wall they didn't wanna take down, that they just move the driveway 20 feet to the side, so it's only to serve two people, but it's as close to be, so it's kind of trying to preserve or for constructability, but in this case, yes, there's a degree of constructability, but it's not even relative to the shared boundary of lot 4 with either of its abutters, which I think is tricky when reviewing the language of the zoning ordinance. I guess with that, we have to make a motion to continue at this point, because this current plan requires zoning relief,
Correct, yep.
as it's drawn.
Yeah, and we still need the, input,
And the Reeves input.
from them, yep.
And has this gone to the Conservation Commission yet?
No, it needs to,
Yeah.
because it's wetland. Our next meeting is the 11th of July.
The conservation meeting or planning board?
Conservation Commission
Conservation.
meets the second Monday of every month, so it would be July 11th.
I think we have the 13th? 13th
And
is
then
our,
the 13th is Planning Board.
correct.
But ZBA meets the third Tuesday of every month, I think that's,
I think you're right.
Kevin would know that.
They're on the 19th of July.
That would be the 19th of July.
That application would need to be in by June 27th.
Happy to, unless there's any other questions, I mean, at this point, we would need to continue to, I guess, any meeting.
To a date and time certain, yep.
Is there any inclination that you'd like to pursue the zoning aspect, cause that would play into the continuation date?
We could put you on an earlier date.
Yeah.
So what we're saying, we don't wanna have you just coming back and forth, if, you know, but you can always, so we can put you on an earlier date, and then if you decide, you know, that you need more time, want more time to go to another date, you would email to, the land use clerk and just say, but again, you would just say, we'd like to be continued to like the next meeting, or, and
Yeah.
so that we can, at a meeting, we can, that's on an agenda, we can continue it again to a date and time certain,
Yeah, we'll aim for the 13th.
13th of
meeting, and-
July.
Yeah, if we have to continue, I'll request it in advance.
And any new deliverables are usually due a week ahead of time, so if there's any revisions or anything like that, just to give staff time to distribute it and, staff time to review it too, so that'd be July 6th. Okay.
And usually if you choose to try and do the conservation commission, do we do that, is it usually right through Sam, or do they go through you for the agenda, cause that's pretty easy,
It's through Sam.
through Sam,
Yeah,
so.
but I think Ed has to say that this needs to go to the Conservation Commission,
We
rather
can,
than having the applicant decide.
sure, so we
Yeah,
can.
We can include that in a motion
we
if
can-
you'd like.
Request that, that the Conservation Commission review, because again, this is if you read our subdivision regs, it's environmentally sensitive areas, parts of it are in the stream protection district, a whole bunch of reasons that it'd be good to have, an actual comment back from the Concom,
Okay.
in my opinion, so I think
I
we
have
need
a-
to make that a formal motion.
I have a motion that kinda combines a bunch of stuff, I guess.
Got it.
I'll make a motion that, we first continue case number 22-002-SUB to our July 13th meeting at 7 PM, and request that the applicant seek to meet with the Conservation Commission for feedback on the proposed layout. Their next meeting is July 11th at 7? Sue, is it 7?
Yes, yeah, seven PM.
And you can contact Sam Demerit, who's the chair of the Conservation Commission.
Okay.
His information's online. Or you can get it from Kevin if needed. So I'll make a motion, July 13th, 7 PM.
I have a suggestion, Lamprey River Advisory Committee? Want
Yep,
to
I'll
tag
amend that, and to, we also request that the applicant contact the Lamprey River Advisory Committee, for feedback due to its designation, being a designated river in the state, but not subject to shoreline protection with NHDS, so.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion by Mr. McKinnon, a second by Ms. Mooney. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
All those opposed, motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on the agenda is case 22-006-SUB. It's a continued case, application from Isabella and Elizabeth Linsky requesting a two-lot subdivision, property located at 64 Priest Road in Nottingham, New Hampshire, identified as tax map 20, lot 2-1. And Priest Road, we confirmed, is a designated scenic road, so this agenda that was noticed or published was listed as that's a scenic road, so.
What is this site there to the manufacturer?
Where this is a
Yes.
Yeah, so I'll clarify that when.
But we
and-
posted it as such, so
Yeah.
it's covered in the,
And I'll clarify that in a moment, once you're able to join us. I'll clarify it for everybody. So before we, have you introduce yourself again for us, and then kind of give us a recap of, any changes made. So in our subdivision regs, or in the appendix that lists our scenic roads, the tax maps that are showing, if you look at another appendix, are actually the E911 maps, they're not the tax map numbers, the E911 maps. So we look back, and I think it's the 1978 town meeting is when this road was declared scenic road, and the verbiage of that lists the correct map numbers. So where does that impact this is, normally if there's any plans for, well, we have to post it, which we did on this agenda, for the continued agenda. So it was posted correctly, and then if certain features are being removed, like stone walls and such, then we usually require, Conservation Commission input. And I don't know that any stone walls are being proposed, to be removed, but we'll discuss that when you have a chance. So you've got the mic, sir.
Okay, I'm Bob Stewart with RCS Designs, representing Isabella and Elizabeth Linsky, 64 Priest Road, Nottingham, of course. First I want to address the stone wall issue, I guess, or potential stone wall issue
Yeah.
with the driveway. It's fortunate that we decided to do the dual access driveway, because therefore we're not gonna change any stone walls. It's beyond the stone walls, just beyond the stone walls. So that kind of makes that argument a little bit more. I thought I had the email that I sent, but I don't, so I'm gonna wing it. The last meeting, we talked about adding setback lines to the parent track, which weren't on the first one. Second thing we talked about, or another thing that we talked about, was the buildable area, which we calculated that and shown it on the plan. The third thing was the 4K areas. We switched those so that it included the original test pit and perk test, and I also added on the second test pit location, and I've done that on both lots. And both those 4K areas qualify for any of the setback and so forth, both for the state and the town. The third thing we did was we eliminated one part of the easement that was in this corner here, and designated this easement for a shared drive, and we also labeled it shared drive. And that changed the table for the easements, and so we corrected that as well. And I believe the last thing that we talked about was monumentation. And so on the west end and the east end, we have concrete bound CB to be set on both of those designated, and then we show an iron pipe halfway through, and we show the distance to that, which is split equally at 266.02 feet. And I believe that was it. The last thing, which I don't think I sent to you because I looked at it today, was a waiver request for the well radius.
For the what?
The well radius.
Oh, the well radius.
The well radius on the parent tract goes over lot line by 5 feet. And it goes over the line by 5 feet because number one, that was the best place for that lot line, but number two, that well already exists. So we're over the lot line by 5 feet. I read the town subdivision regulations and understand that, or it was my understanding, my takeaway from it was that the reason for that was to mirror what the state requires. So that if this was further over, it would require an easement. Because it's within 10 feet of the property line, it's in a no man's land. You can't develop within that 10 feet with a septic system, so therefore, we already have state subdivision approval. They did not require it based on that. And so we have that same situation, I believe, here, and that's why I asked for the waiver on that. And I do have the waiver request filled out, and I can submit it. Okay.
Thank you.
And I believe that was it.
All right, thank you. And I do apologize for the misprint in our regs. That'll be remedied the next time we update our subdivision regs, which we're planning for doing some updates to them this year, so. And then, let's see. All right, just a small typo, just before I forget about it. The current parent parcel, the contiguous buildable area, just looks like it has like some extra commas in the 94,000 square footage.
I noticed that when I
Okay, yeah.
highlighted it.
Yeah.
I realized that, so I'll make sure that's corrected before we have a final plan.
So I'll bring it, I'm sorry, I jumped ahead. Mr. Haney, did you have any new comments that you'd like to share, based on, the updated plans?
No, he covered everything. He outlined it quite well in his email to Kevin and I, so at the bottom of my comments, you see 3 of them. The other 2 were covered in the, back up in the rest of the text. Revised the plan to show the test pits and the perks inside the 4K area so that it met what we were, met our subdivision regs. Yes, that's what both comments are. And then he adjusted the shared driveway to meet what the board had discussed last time, to stay in line with the, straddling the lot line. Otherwise, it was the granite bounds, buildable area for the parent track, and setbacks for the parent track, all of which are on there. So.
And then mentioning the test pits, on the plan, you have test pit number 1 kind of shown out what it is, test pit 2, but I don't actually, unless I'm missing it, I see where test pit 2 is on the current parcel, but I don't see test pit 1. So there's areas marked test pit, I think the label maybe fell off.
Oh, on the new parcel?
Yeah, it's test pit, and then the other, this right here is the perk test.
Are you talking about over here, like, we have a table for
It's
test
the
pit
same
1?
symbology, but it does say, yeah, perk,
CP on it.
yeah, perk and test.
I think so is, the test pit logs that are on the plan itself, are, test pit 2 is within the lot of the existing home. Is test pit 1, is that on the 4K for the new parcel?
Yes, parcel A.
Okay, so I think that was just, we saw the label for test pit 3, test pit 2. The test pits, just the, you know, the designation
Oh,
for
I
those.
understand.
Yeah, it would
Yeah,
just- yep.
yeah.
So that might, just for consistency, that might just be just ask that make its way onto the final plan.
Mm-hmm.
Just make sure the labels on those 2 other test pits, maybe just
Sure.
1 and 4 or whatever they were.
Mm-hmm.
Sense.
Is there any further discussion on the board?
Just, would agree that, that well radius and the waiver for that, should be acted on, and I agree with the, state's, requirements, which are acceptable.
Yeah, so we can, I can read the waiver. Oh, there's a couple, so I can actually give it to somebody if somebody wants. So I've got the original, so I'll make sure to get that to Kevin, so I'll lose that. So it says, I, Robert Stewart, seek the following waiver to the Town of Nottingham subdivision regulations, Article 19, Section 3. Make sure that is,
I checked.
that
it
is the correct,
yeah.
correct one. For the above case submittal, well radius placement, the well radius is proposed for map 6, lot 20 parent track, encroaches on the proposed lot by 5 feet and into the right of way by 3 feet. Per NHDES subsurface rules, ENV-WQ 1008.08, this is permissible because it extends into the lot in an area that is precluded from development. It is accorded full recognition without deeded rights. The first 10 feet into the lot is precluded from a septic system per rule, and the right of way is precluded from development. The state application was approved on May 11th, 2022, with the wells and property lines as shown without the need for a deeded well easement. So we do have a waiver. If anybody would like to make a motion towards that or discuss, just have any discussion, I can hand this to somebody if.
So yeah, Mr. Chairman, I move to accept the waiver for the encroachment of 5 feet on the, boundary, of the well radius on lot 66.
Parcel.
Parcel A.
Lot 6, yeah.
I'll second that.
That's a motion by Mr. Anderson and second by Mr. McKinnon. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries 6-0. Waiver, okay, so that waiver's approved. Okay, the only other thing I had, in general, when we approve a plan and we approve a driveway, the town's kind of expecting that's where the driveway's gonna go. So I understand that's where it's gonna go for the new parcel. The current parking, I believe, for the existing house is kind of, I don't know what the length is, but how much of it might extend into what's considered the right of way. Do you know, is there any plan to actually develop the driveway so that the existing house can actually utilize that driveway and stop parking along Priest Road?
It exists.
Okay,
The driveway currently exists.
okay, so it has,
So it's seasonal, right?
As shown on the, well, they use it seasonal because they park on the road. So when the snow flies, they park off the road.
okay, so it's there now. Perfect, thank you so much, I appreciate that. But I think we're at the stage now, we can make, you know,
motion.
make a
Nobody else
final action. I think there is a couple of small things, you know, that we mentioned for the final plan. but I think we could do a conditional, this conditional,
So you have state sub, correct?
We do.
But you, okay, gotcha. So
I believe I submitted that. No?
I think it was in the first meeting, I can't remember. No, I just,
Yeah.
you have any-
Mr. Chair, do you, intend to include that conditional, that ties in a meeting with the Conservation Commission after the fact?
I did not, because I believe,
There's no impact.
unless I misread the, because of the scenic road portion.
Yes, and I recognize it's just a formality, at this point,
No, I
but it's
appreciate that.
a regulation.
Got the wrong thing, it's scenic road is what I need to. Sorry, definitely don't wanna step on any toes. I was thinking that was only in the case where it was, impacting, trees along the road or, stone walls being relocated.
Mm-hmm. So if those aren't impacted, then there's no need.
Driveway location within the town or right away. So yeah, I guess, reading, so that's subdivision regulation, section 15.3.6 scenic road access. Number 2, plans for driveway location within the town right of way, including stone walls to be relocated or removal of trees, must be submitted to the Conservation Commission for review prior to final subdivision approval. So we could make that, it'd be a little strange, we could make it a condition that that meeting occur.
Right, as I stated, the driveway exists. The driveway that's shown on here, driveway that's shown on the plan
Yeah.
is the actual driveway that exists today. So
Yes,
there's
yes.
no movement
Oh,
of stone
same.
walls, trees.
But you need to present that to the Conservation Commission.
So I have to show, okay, all right.
Yeah, there's just,
Yeah,
I kinda see it though, if it's been proven to the planning board that there's no stone walls or trees to be removed, then that first sentence of point number 2 essentially doesn't apply, which is what, and that's what goes into, then a plan must be submitted.
Couldn't we waive it?
Yeah, I mean,
Good.
But he's
Oh,
saying
impact.
he's not doing any construction
Right.
on the driveway.
Yeah.
Couldn't we-
Right, the way it
driveway
reads.
exists.
The way it reads, so it's 15.3.6 and then number 2. So if you take out the section that's in the comma, so plans for driveway location within the town right of way must be submitted to the Conservation Commission for review prior to
I see what
final
you're saying.
subdivision
It's just
approval.
the parentheses portion is essentially adding
It's,
definition to.
it's, or emphasis as well, to it. So it's a shall instead of a should, and then oops.
Or it's a must, right? Must be.
Right, I don't like to, in general, for myself personally, I don't like to waive things that are, or step on the toes of other boards, if we place things in our regs.
I mean, in terms of, Sue, is this the type of thing, do you require an applicant to go, or can they submit a plan and then the board just discuss at their meeting and then submit? I mean, since it's just feedback.
I think,
I don't,
yeah,
we've never had that happen before.
I think we can, I still think we can conditionally approve it with
Yes.
that. The gray area with that, or the difficulty of it, is if something comes back and it changes the plans, we don't have to accept, it's just saying that they have to meet with them, and Concom has to be able to have input.
But
From there, we can, the planning board can either accept their comments, reject them. It's not, there's nothing that ties our hands, it's just more of making sure we get input. So it's a formality, I think, but, in this case, I think it's more of a formality.
Yeah.
But again, it's in our regs, it's more of a shall, and we don't discuss waivers of it.
I'd be in favor of, yeah, go ahead, Sue.
Well, it would be a quick turnaround, because July 11th is our, Conservation Commission meeting in July, and then the 13th, the following Wednesday. That Wednesday is planning board. So if it's just a formality and we approve, you know, we can do the letter and send it right over.
So are you saying that you would like to see a motion to approve moved, not taken until the 13th?
Not taken, because what if the applicant all of a sudden, oh, I can't make it, I've had a problem, you know, and then that gets kicked down the road.
So,
I just have issue with having them come back and back when it's,
for this,
we're 100%.
I would say that, we can submit the plans as the board, we can make a motion that we're submitting the plans to the board, requesting the Conservation Commission's comment, and you were definitely welcome to submit additional comment to the Conservation Commission chair, indicating what you just said, existing driveway, no stone walls are being proposed to be removed, no trees are being proposed to be removed within the, say the scenic road area, the setback, beyond, yeah.
That's it.
And
Yeah,
then,
there's
like, I
nothing.
think that would give them sufficient information to make a comment back to us, and then we could, act on those comments at our next.
Yeah, I think that'd be
Meeting.
fine.
So he doesn't have to go to the meeting.
It doesn't say he has, it doesn't say that the individual, that the applicant actually has to go to the Conservation Commission. I
I
don't
saw that.
think.
So I can submit through the board,
Essentially, everything that you provided to Kevin is what's gonna go
Right.
to the
and
conservation.
I'll take a couple pictures or something.
Yeah.
I'm on a.
And a little cover letter too.
I'm on a conservation commission as well in my town, so I understand all of this, so it's not an issue, but, I just wanna, so if I can do it that way, because if it were anything else, if we were moving something, if this was a brand-new driveway, surely I would show up to the meeting.
Yeah,
But I'm an hour and 20 minutes away,
Ah.
so.
yeah, that's what I'm saying, I don't think it makes sense, I wouldn't normally,
This back and forth is kinda,
yeah, yeah, that's what I'm saying, I don't
Getting
think it makes sense.
expensive.
yeah, it's getting very expensive.
That would be fine.
So, so if
Do
I
you need a
can,
motion that he doesn't need to do that, or?
Well, just-
No.
No,
No.
just a
Okay.
motion to
Not the right thing,
continue
yes.
with that being the one outstanding item essentially.
Okay. All right.
So I'm just gonna give a little input here.
July 13th is a busy meeting, isn't it?
So we have, this is a continuation, we'll have 4 continuations, okay? Plus, we'll have 1 subdivision,
New.
new, 1 subdivision design review, 2 consultations, conceptual, excuse me.
Can we manipulate the, how many?
Yeah.
Well, does he have,
that's 7 different applicants.
if the Conservation Commission comes back and says, check the box, all good, then on the 13th, we would just be, if we're not gonna conditionally approve it tonight, then we would just be approving it.
We've essentially, I think as a board agreed, is the plan stands, it's,
Does the applicant
Approvable.
have to be here?
Right, he doesn't have to
No.
be here. And then we just send a letter saying what our decision is.
can we also manipulate the, we control the agenda, right?
Yeah, of course, that's up to, no,
Yeah.
for something like that, if we have something that's quick in housekeeping,
I was gonna say, it'd be nice to get that out of the way, and then
Whoever's
if you do
chairing that
choose to
night.
come, I don't want everybody to wait around for that to see.
Yeah, no, just
Can do that.
put that first.
So do we do a
applicant-
conditional approval tonight, is that what you're saying?
it seems like it's cleaner to continue and
I'd like to condition it, but if there's any, if
And
there's
then you can do
apprehension on it, I'd hate for a no vote too.
a final approval at that one.
Alright.
I would just hate to see any no votes, and if there's anybody that feels that it does need to go to somebody beforehand, then I don't wanna push something
If-
that's gonna get a no vote.
If there's no
from-
changes,
Yeah,
if you have everything ready, like, so normally our conditional approvals, I think you've addressed everything, so it's monument set, final approvals, if you have all those items,
Well, the test pit on the plan.
and you know,
I did label the test bit, I'll fix the additional commas in the,
if you bring in, if you had everything with you that night, and final approval was granted by the board, and you had the Mylar with you, I think we'd be able to sign everything at that night.
yeah.
Unless somebody was looking at me like maybe,
No, I mean,
Yeah.
it's fine,
which would save you a trip, you know,
right?
back and forth.
And so the,
Gave up. He gave up.
It's not an omen.
Something's not happening here. So if that's the case, what would I normally have for
Conditions?
the conditions to be able to get that Mylar signed that night? Cause again, I don't wanna come back.
Of course, so the items that
Don't
are
have to.
in the staff, notes at the very end, it says conditions of approval, normally are plan copies with professional seals and signatures, which is surveyor and wetland scientist stamps, and signed, original Mylar with professional seals and signatures, all fees paid, and then, you know, monument set is another one, and then just the small clarification items that we mentioned tonight on the final plan.
Okay, so the monuments have to be set before you sign the Mylar.
No, they're just part of the conditions,
Yeah.
so,
Oh,
so you have 1 year to complete the conditions.
okay,
Yeah.
right,
But we can sign the Mylar so that it can get recorded,
right,
you know, after
Right.
30-day appeal, right?
Mhm.
yeah, so that's why I'm trying to go a little bit quicker here, because you start to add in the time
Sure.
and, you know, it's September before they can market the piece of property.
Yeah, I think the intent is just, I guess, to get everybody on board and comfortable with the Conservation Commission. If you make those 2 plan edits,
Mhm.
I think what Ed's saying is right, basically prepare so that we could sign that evening. And then-
Like I said, what I'll do is I'll take some pictures,
Okay,
have them mounted on a cover letter that just explains what we're doing. And I looked into that when I originally was involved in this project. And the way that I read it was, by tax map. So this is tax map 20 or something, I think it is, was not included in that definition. Cause I went to the definition or the description, I should say.
There's a table in the back there, yeah.
Yeah,
I think we've made note that that's one of our updates is to.
Yes, well, I
Yeah.
talked to Chris about it, specifically about this one, and what it reads and what we have on the website, the document that we use. I think that's what, Ed was referring to, 1978. It said from, don't kill me if I don't know, Farmview Road, is that it, to Route, 152.
Oh, Freeman Hall.
Freeman Hall.
Freeman Hall to
Freeman Hall.
152, yeah.
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 To 152, so we looked at it, and it's essentially the
It's the
entire.
entire,
that would
And
be
it-
the
it's
entire
the
road.
entire road.
And at the last meeting, I was thinking of Kennard Road, which has that paved section, which I think Kennard Road is also a scenic road, and I think that paved section of that road is pulled out of the scenic
I
road
don't think
part.
Canard Road isn't the scenic road.
Part of it is.
Part of it is?
I believe part of it
Really?
is.
I didn't know
I
that.
believe the dirt parts are,
the information's in the master plan.
yeah.
All 8 roads are, described, and the date of adoption is in the master plan.
And I actually looked back, UNH has the town reports online, like.
Oh, I
scanned.
believe
No,
you.
I,
I'm just
I
saying,
mean,
when
I know,
I
but
did
looked-
it,
So I look back, so it's no fault of yours,
No.
I look back at that to make sure, okay, what's right, and then as I was figuring it out, that's when I looked at the maps that are listed there, and the prior appendix that lists the E911 maps, those are those, but they're wrong, that's not what we go by, we go by the tax maps,
right,
so we need to update that.
Luckily, we know about it now.
Yeah. We are painfully aware of it now, and I apologize.
Do we have to go through town meeting to change it? I mean, that's a.
No, it's a
area.
subdivision reg, so
No,
it's
it's actually the
ours.
subdivision reg.
Oh, subdivision.
So it'll just be
But even still,
adding it to our list.
we can do that here administratively,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, yep.
Still will take care of it.
All right, so we need a motion
Okay.
to continue.
I'll make a motion that we continue case 22-006-SUB to the July 13th meeting at 7 PM. And refer the case for feedback to the Conservation Commission prior to a vote from the planning board.
Second.
That's a motion by, Mr. McKinnon, a second by Mr. Anderson. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries 6-0. I do appreciate your time and patience on that part of it.
Mr. Stewart, when you do your final plans, Priest Road is spelled incorrectly.
What is?
Priest Road,
Oh, it is?
yeah.
Really? Now, where does the Conservation Commission meet?
Room 2, down the hall on the
Okay,
right.
same building.
Yeah.
Just down that one. Can we request this be number 1 on the list so we can just have a nice quick vote?
For him.
Yeah.
We can,
Yeah.
again, the board, whoever chairs that night, we'll just remember.
Yeah, we can move it around.
We can change the agenda as much as we want.
Again, but this is just, so, does Miss Lentz, they live in town, don't they?
They live
I
in
mean,
town.
One of them could.
Yeah,
but
they.
So I can have one of them
Yeah,
show up
you
We're not gonna ask for.
if I can trust that it's gonna go smoothly, because they're gonna freak out if there's
If you got
more
comment
than a
back,
question
We're not
of,
gonna come with a list to grill them.
Fair enough, I mean, fair enough, I just, try to
Right.
save you a little bit there.
right,
Then they can take, usually when I talk to, the applicants, I really push for them to, I give them the Mylar, there's a little bit different than what was done before me, just because I think it's good for them to go and actually take care of everything at the registry, if anything comes up, they can
Right.
take care of, so usually they get involved in that process anyways.
right.
So if it saves you a trip,
We'll work it out. I'll be in contact
Yeah.
and we'll figure it out, but appreciate your time tonight.
thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah, good night.
Next on the agenda is our other portion of business. Mr. Haney, do we have anything that you're aware of?
I don't know.
No. And then next would be public comment. We always reserve time at every single meeting, or we try to allow any member of the public to come in and if they have questions, comments, concerns that they'd like to address to us, we'll answer them here. I just can't respond to specific properties, projects, applications. There's nobody here from the public tonight, so we'll move on to the minutes. We have 2 sets, May 11th and May 25th. I did send some edits over to Mr. Lemieux just yesterday for the May 25th minutes. I don't think those have had a chance to go back out, but,
they didn't go back up, but they haven't.
and I didn't print what they were. It's just corrections of verbiage and a couple minor tweaks, but I think the May 11th meeting minutes could be are ready. If anybody would like to make a motion on those, or.
To
I
approve.
approve, we approve I move we approve the May 11th minutes.
I'll second.
That's a motion by Ms. Jones, second by Ms. Mooney. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Motion carries 6-0. Last is, next to last, select board, staff board member updates. There's no, select board member here tonight. I will reach out to, our ex officio just to see if they have an alternate, to see if they can better coordinate that to, make sure that their representation is here. So we'll start, I'll just go around again from my right. Ms. Jones, if you have anything. Any updates or
I'm
anything?
good.
Just for SRPC, the annual meeting.
Annual commissioners, yep.
That's tomorrow, so unfortunately I won't be able to make it to that, but it is around art and community, best I could tell, so, and
She'll be a
maybe
barber.
they will give us more. Thanks.
To go off the SRPC,
Yep.
has there been any recent follow-up with becoming a member? I know it's been a tricky budget item.
No, I was giving it some time. I reached
Yeah.
out to our town administrator, but it was right after town meeting. So at the beginning of the year, you can't really find extra money in the budget.
Yeah.
So it's hard to, to come up with that if it's not there. So as we get into the year and see how things come through, it will be something, if the board is still looking for it, that I follow up again and, see if we can push that along. Cause again, I think the overall opinion was that there's a lot of value to it. We're losing some of our voice as a community, as a town, on some votes. So, and we utilize enough of the services that it could actually be, very beneficial for us as a town. So I will follow up on that. Again.
And the only other thing I had was a schedule moved around, so I will be here July 27th. I originally was gonna be gone that week, and I know we have some cases that we're gonna be shifting around, so.
Thank you. For me, the only thing, so I have, so I know we have to look at, and I've been in communication with the town administrator about, our impact fees, how we calculate them and assess them, and, I believe the bond payment, the final bond payments are being made, on the fire station. So that one would be, that was the, reasoning for the impact fee, was the fire station. So we'll definitely have to look at that as a board to determine what we do for future, impact fees. We can always leave it as it is for the moment, and allow people to request waivers from them, and then act on those waivers accordingly. Normally, the capital improvement plan is a big part of creating impact fees and figuring out what they are. That doesn't generally ramp up until later in the year. So I don't think we're gonna have any input from the CIP about, if there's any plans for any kind of fire expenditure or budgeting that would be subject or could be part of an impact fee. So we should definitely keep it on our agenda and have it for maybe depending on if our July 27th meeting is a little more free than our July 13th. Have it as an action item for that night to make sure we address it again. I think if we're voting on them or making changes to them, I believe we have to do it as a public hearing. And then we can act on it from there, so I'll make sure to have that figured out for that time, but I don't know. My opinion on it, I guess, is that I don't wanna be assessing fees that aren't valid, but the information we need isn't gonna be out till later in the year, most likely, to make us be able to have an educated, discussion on it. I think we could always change them and then change them again.
I was gonna say, as long as the ordinance is in place, we can amend fees via the correct process, right? So you can always
It seems
amend it to,
Waive them for now.
Or suspend them, yeah.
yeah.
But and technically, I think the way the town has collected impact fees in the past, it's time of building permit or occupancy permit. I don't think it's collected until, it's not collected at the time of subdivision approval, which, in my opinion, in my understanding, it's usually at the building permit level. So, do they get assessed at, I think they get assessed at whatever was on file at the time, not what might be currently on file, but that's something I'd have to clarify with, town administration too, which I will. Okay. That's all I have this movie.
Our newest member on the Conservation Commission, Dallas Huggins, is a turtle rehabilitator, and she's hosting a program at the library this Saturday on turtle rehabilitation. And that is at 11 o'clock in the morning, probably will be a couple of hours. That's it.
Anderson?
I have a question. We have a site walk next Wednesday, right? Has that been posted and stuff?
5:30, right?
That's at 5:30, right?
5:30 at Shea Concrete.
What time is that, where?
5:30 at Shea Concrete on Route 4,
5:30 on what day?
the 29th, Wednesday, the 29th,
Okay.
We like to stay consistent.
at Shea Concrete, which is on Route 4.
There's an address somewhere.
160 Old Turnpike Road.
160 Old Turnpike Road. I did sign up for the SRPC annual meeting, so I'll be there in person representing the town.
Thank
So
you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
signing up for
I
that.
might get asked about when are we becoming a member.
Maybe you don't get the gift bag. Maybe that's,
Is there a gift bag?
I don't know. Now I'm throwing it out there. Maybe we need gift bags. I don't know.
And that's all I got.
It's been mentioned twice, but I was, planning to mention that, annual commissioners meeting is tomorrow, and you are all welcome to come. You are, welcome to register at the door. So, it's, networking starts at 11:30, but I think people are gonna start showing up a little bit before that. So, yeah, creative placemaking and public art in our local communities.
It's at the Governor's Inn in Rochester.
In Rochester, yep. So,
Swing through for half an hour, I might. It's right down the road from my work, so that's.
oh, nice, yeah. 11:30 to 2:30 is what it is, but, yeah, everybody's welcome to come.
And the presentation starts at 12:30?
That's correct.
Awesome, how are you?
Yeah, like I said, it's, the event starts at 12:30, but people are gonna show up around 11:30.
Okay.
So,
Is there lunch involved?
yes, there is. It's a lunch, and then, they do a presentation with a panel, and, it's like an hour and a half. Institute of Art and Design, New Hampshire Creative Communities, Rochester Arts and Culture, Rochester Museum of Fine Arts, and Dover Planning Director.
Yeah, Rochester's been doing a lot with the arts.
There's an art museum.
And what day is this?
It's in the
Tomorrow.
Community
Oh,
center.
tomorrow.
Yeah,
It's tomorrow.
And it's also a
Not gonna work for me tomorrow.
gallery in the
Okay.
library too. And then there's some public buildings and some public like sculptures along 125 as you're coming into Rochester. There's some metal sculptures that were part of the Arts Commission and such. Yeah, it's pretty becoming a little bit more vibrant. So, Mr. Lemieux, anything else for us? I know you mentioned we had.
As mentioned earlier, chock full of stuff on July 13th, just before continuations and then new stuff, so, like I said, essentially, it's one full application subdivision, design review for subdivision, both on Stevens Hill, and two conceptuals, Mr. Fernald, I think once that is, I hear what he needs to write up for his site plan for his product, for lumber. She just wants to talk to you guys about that.
That sounds like an awful lot. Do we ever just declare our meeting nights
Well,
full?
So we have some of it's not.
Some of
In
it's
terms
not. I agree,
of giving a fair,
100%.
and in terms of giving a fair hearing to all these people, it's
agree.
hard.
So we try to be conscientious of that, and cognizant of that. If we're continuing cases, and that's why we try to talk to the applicant, we usually ask, like, what else we have on the agenda that night. That gives the applicant a chance to hear what else we have. If it's new cases and things, we're tied a bit by the RSAs and when we have to act on items. That said, we are never bound to, so.
You just have to accept it.
You have
There's
to, right,
yeah.
so something I've been thinking about for a while is possibly, maybe we should update our agenda, like the verbiage on them. I've looked at what other, some other towns do, and I think they make it a little more clear, as to like what the board may do in a night, so it makes it clear, like, the board may act on acceptance and may act on completion this night, so saying that, because some boards will never act on the two. Some will only accept it as complete in a night, but will never give final approval or, approval on the same night. I don't know if that's a best practice thing or not, but
I've seen that more too when you have full-time planning staff that can, they're like intaking. I mean, I guess I don't know if that's something that you guys are, I guess, contracted or qualified to make a decision on, is if something is.
They take them in, Kevin takes them in.
Right, but if you do your staff review and are you capable, or I don't know if that's in your purview to make a recommendation, like you said, if we just accept and maybe get feedback, or because sometimes if there's enough outstanding based on the planner's perspective, you'll see recommendation for
Yeah.
additional information or something like that.
so we'll usually try to, so again, and then it comes to whoever's chairing that night, that, as to how the cases go, so we can limit times, we can say, yes, continue tonight, we're gonna hear it, but we're cutting it off, and, out of fairness to the applicant. We do not want, we try to not go beyond, too late into the night. One of our meetings was 10 o'clock, that's very late for this board, and I don't think it does anybody justice, but when people are driving in, I wanna make sure that we do hear them, so. There's probably ways to improve it, and we, but I think we always try to err also on helping applicants get through without delaying them another 2 weeks or a month.
I think in some cases, we've seen some pretty sloppy plans come before us that have obviously not read our subdivision regs, and, you know, if we got good plans in front of us, and that we don't have to keep going back and forth, because, you know, but I don't know what's going on with some of these engineers. They're either, I tell you, if I was the person paying them, I'd be pretty upset with a couple of ones we've recently seen.
Yeah, I think it depends on when, I think it's probably familiarity. It comes down to a lot of it. Again, if it's a engineering firm or surveyor, wherever that works with our town often, they tend to be, I think they tend to understand
When does
our
the
regs
one
more
on
than
Mary Hill
others.
Road come up again? Is that the 11th?
13th.
13th, rather? Yeah, that's gonna take a lot of discussion.
Yeah.
Shea Concrete also comes back on the 13th as well, so.
Yeah, so we have a few that,
2 large site plans.
Yeah, both of those are gonna
But
take a lot.
that one has a DRI now,
So-
component two, isn't that gonna push that off of that
yeah, I don't wanna,
meeting?
I don't wanna
We
get too
can't
far
discuss the cases.
into any of the cases.
Well, but I understand that, but it's
Yeah.
more just of a scheduling thing.
Correct.
That's,
Yeah, there's stuff that may be outside of the normal, that could impact that, where they're actually on the agenda, but an applicant we know it's gonna probably have to be continued beyond that, but,
I guess that's more to Charlene's point is, if we do see, and it's the opinion of somebody on the board, that, if it's clear that there's going to need to be revisions, then maybe that's
We don't
internally, that's,
accept it.
you know, I'm always a fan of, if something's enough to review, I'm a fan of, unless it's, I mean, there's obviously you get to some quality that you're like, I can't accept this because I don't even know what it is, but a lot of times it's, I deem it enough to accept, because then you can at least legally have a conversation with them, and at that
Right.
point, it's rifle off, but maybe that's an application where it doesn't warrant a lot of back and forth like that, you know, here, there's a lot of information we still need, please read this, this, and this, and come back, and then that could save time, but that's obviously a case-by-case basis, and
Yep.
based on the opinion of the board members, I think at that point.
what I don't like though in that situation is you give that your initial review, and then they go back and make those changes, and then in reviewing the changes, you pick up stuff, you know, new stuff. And then they think we didn't do our job by picking it up the first time. And it's like, I was distracted by the 10 other errors that you had.
Yeah,
And they get,
yeah.
and when I was a planning director in a community, I told my staff to just hand it back to them. If it's riddled with mistakes like that, I don't want to put it on me or my staff to be responsible for finding every little thing that should have been dealt with by an engineer.
No, so ultimately, it's, and I've reminded applicants of this, and I know the prior chair or chairs have as well, when it gets brought up. Ultimately, it's on the applicant to present complete, correct plans.
100%,
It's
yeah.
100% on them. We're here to interpret,
we're a
facilitate,
volunteer board, that's.
make action on them. But in the end, and we try to do a very good job, I think we all do a very good job, staff included, that in the end, it is on the applicant, you know.
Sure, yeah. No, I know.
Because, yeah, we don't want to take up more of our time or anybody else's time either, so, but I appreciate,
The one question I
That
do have though is, where does this 65 days, how does that play into this with the continuations on, because the first one tonight, it had been a while since they had been before us.
I believe when it's mutually
Yes.
agreed upon, it can continue, you can extends that.
Okay, so
timeline.
that is what keeps pushing out, if it's a mutually
I was
agreed
at,
upon.
I was at a planning board for my job last week, and there was a 30-minute discussion on this, cause they had to pull up the RSA, and it's essentially, at that mark, the board needs to make a decision. The board, the way it reads is actually the board can't request the continuation, which essentially could null and void and just say, we're gonna move forward in perpetuity.
Yeah,
The applicant has to do that, or the board has to make a decision. Or you can actually, if the board wants to make a request, it actually has to go to the selectmen.
Huh.
So that was the verbiage in the RSA, was that, say, we can't force them to ask us, but if the board decided that we did need a continuation, that the select board has the right to grant a continuation for the planning board. There's kind of 3 or
If
4
the applicant
criteria.
was
So-
Yeah.
against it.
technically speaking, the requests for continuation are coming from the applicant to the board to be able to satisfy.
Yeah, that's the way it's supposed to happen.
That's how,
but-
that's what's pushing that 65 days.
Mhm. I think mostly the board will express that. I think most applicants, if the board expresses that they're not gonna vote in favor of something,
Right, yeah,
then their first inclination is to give the, to help, cause otherwise the board, I think, is forced to make a vote before the 65-day.
yeah, based on
This
what's,
case-
based on what's in front of you.
In this case, the board had actually was at the 65-day and then had to cancel a meeting due to a death on the planning board. So they canceled the meeting, but kind of forgot to think about that, so there was this odd legal gray area where they just kind of had an agreement with the applicant and said, you know,
Limbo.
out of, extenuating circumstances, canceled the meeting, they ended up approving it that night, so they didn't need the continuation, but it had gone beyond the 65 days technically.
Well, you also get the date and time certain thing, so.
Yeah,
That's
so
a
then
weird- that's a
sometimes
weird-
some
that's a
people
very
don't say
weird
that, yeah.
Gray area.
Yeah, it was the first time I knew that if the board wanted one to say we were kind of a stalemate with the applicant, and they didn't wanna explicitly say yes or no, then we have the right to ask the select board, which I'm not really sure. I guess you have to make an immediate motion to the select board, and maybe it freezes time, I don't know.
Well, let's hope we don't. have to-
RSA's are fun to read, and that one was obviously quite tricky to be figuring out in a meeting.
Yeah.
I have a question for
We-
Kevin. Kevin, Stevens Hill Road application, can you give me the name of the applicant?
That's-
And that's a scenic road as well.
So I know one's Falcone,
Balzoni,
Falzoni, sorry.
yeah? Is he the one who's coming in for that,
That's a design review.
oh, design
I
review?
believe that's 8 lot subdivision.
Yeah,
And the other one is Comia, C-O-M.
up on Stevens Hill? Oh, I don't know that
I
one.
think that's a 4 lot.
So do you have some of the plans now that you could get them to us earlier than,
So I'm gonna tell you what I told the zoning board, okay? Cause I had this request from the zoning board, I work 20 hours a week, and be a slam. So I do my best to get them out. I don't get them out before a meeting coming up, because I don't wanna confuse you. So then it goes from when I get back, I have other responsibility, and this isn't complaining, this is just me being very practical.
No, I appreciate it.
So I leave here, I gotta write my notice of decisions, I have all those things that I gotta do within my 5-day window. I at least have to have an acceptable amount of minutes written, cause I don't have the talent to do it while we speak, I can't do it as well. So, with that being said, I do try to get them out to you as soon as I can. I try to email them to you as soon as I can, but it gets, there's only so many hours in the day, to be honest, or there's only so many hours that I don't really know how else to say it without sounding like I'm complaining, but,
That stuff doesn't, on the website, the links on the website, those don't become live until we've accepted an application, or do you put new stuff up there? I can't.
So, when I get an application, I've gotta go through it, make sure I have everything, get all the abutters notice. So to do abutters notice is literally, for each application, at least an hour and a half to 2 hour process.
Yep.
Each application. So I gotta do that. So then I gotta take the application, I gotta scan it, okay? So once I scan it, now I have it in my database, and then after I scan it, then I gotta upload stuff to the website, which is whole nother process, so.
Okay. I didn't know if that usually finds its way, if you have a principle of like when you mail stuff, you also upload it, I didn't know.
That's
Try
what
to.
when I
Yeah.
send out the mailing, cause in my head, I'm like, alright, now the mailing's going out, so they're gonna be searching for it. So I
Okay.
usually mail first, which has to at least be 10 days ahead, or has to be 10 days ahead, so that's usually my window. I
Gotcha.
say, alright, 10 days, I try to get the mailings out, as soon as those are out, I try to get them out to you guys, make sure I get them out to you guys, and then I try to get it on the website. So I try to do that all within
Okay.
whatever time I have. Not to mention,
Meant to mention.
I am the only planning and zoning person, so anyone that walks through the door gets my attention. So that could be a 10-minute conversation, could be an hour and a half conversation. And that's even for building stuff, not just planning and zoning.
Yep.
So, that's just me being
no,
straightforward.
No, I appreciate, it's good, good
It's
for,
unprecedented.
It's
Again,
at a, it's a good amount of work, and it's a little bit more than just clerical. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
yeah,
I gotta analyze things, I gotta talk to people about this stuff. I can't really we got Blair, but every question I get, I can't be reaching out to number one, I don't think he's contracted to do it. And number two, it just doesn't make sense, like, you know what I mean? Like, I have to be able to answer things on the fly the best I can.
Sure. Yeah, no,
How often does an applicant provide you with electronic files for applications? PDFs of, like a PDF that's the plan set, a PDF of, okay,
They're usually, now, if it's someone we worked with,
they might,
microwaves,
okay,
sometimes Landry, those guys who know us, local guys,
yep,
usually they kind of know how to deal with, get that stuff in.
Okay.
But a lot of times I just have people walk in, and sometimes I'll just come in and I don't even know, there's just a stack on my desk. And there's just a note on it.
somebody stamped it and that's it.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I think, I'm always looking for ways to not necessarily create increased costs for applicants, but make it more efficient for everybody. So obviously, we have our plan sets, we've talked about the number and everything else for paper. But if we can push them back to the applicant, that they need to provide an electronic copy as well, PDF of their plans.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Cause there's no reason, there's zero reason that anybody should have to scan in plans, cause again, the quality degrades everything. So I would be fine with making that a or an update of our subregs as well, that we make that
And I think it's safe
Requirement.
to say that probably most of the people that aren't submitting them, they probably have electronic, because by law, you're required to keep records, and these days, unless you like file cabinets, we've sold 20 file cabinets at my office in the last month, probably, because we finally thinned things out, but,
Yeah.
I mean, our standard practice is to, we email a link out sometimes before our person has even hit the office with the submission.
Yeah.
But I think it's definitely a good idea to think about. I know we were gonna look at potentially a checklist anyway, and maybe that's a time to update the checklist and say electronic files of, and that would obviously save you time in the long run, but most people live in the PDF world anyway, so they already have it as a PDF. They're probably printing from a PDF anyway to print the plans for you, so I mean, I think that's an easy
Why
ask.
don't we start just asking them for it?
Yeah, I guess, I don't know how we formalize it on a,
I'd say you just say, and we recommend. We recommend that you also submit an electronic, and then we deal with, so if we say we recommend, we're not necessarily requiring it, but we're just recommending it.
Well, even at the application point, if they walk in, even though they have, printed plans, and you were to say, do you have this on a PDF?
So here's my response to that. You guys are gonna come in, yeah, you have a PDF, can you send it to me? It's gonna take me, by the time I get it,
yeah.
you know what I mean, it's just, oh, I'm waiting for
I think maybe it's something as
Maybe
simple, I
just
know,
write it on the
Yeah, if
application
it's-
paperwork
Yeah,
to
that's what I
say,
was-
please include
Yeah, if it's more kind of says it on, the application, that's better. I do think you need to do something, by the way, with your application.
Yes.
As well, the site plan versus versus lot line
revise the
adjustment,
application.
or subdivision,
I
and,
think there's no one for site plan.
yeah, it just confuses a lot.
Yeah, okay.
So,
Why don't we,
there's a lot to unpack.
so why don't we take a time in September's meeting to go through the checklist
And applications, we print all of it.
and
Yeah, I mean,
get that done.
we've talked about
We
that, and we
need to,
just,
like,
we keep,
carve out time.
yeah, we keep
Yeah.
talking
Pushing
about it,
it
but
off.
yeah, but the problem is, we got 7 more coming at us, like, we
Right.
we don't have time for it.
I mean,
I agree with you, because it's frustrating to me that no one provides a narrative. Like, I wanna hear in their own words what they're doing, and that should be a part of these things, and there should be a separate application for site plan review and subdivision, so. Yeah, I completely agree, we just.
I was thinking of the conditional use permit, that's the one that we drafted most recently,
Right.
that's what I was thinking
So-
of. And that one, they do, it says, explain this, explain that, granted, there's different, that's for the criteria, but I do agree that the site plan and subdivision, I mean, it's multi-pages because either they need to write a narrative,
Yeah.
or it has to be attached as like a cover letter as the
Yeah,
narrative.
they don't have to
to
do
it.
much, they don't need to do much, it's just, tell me what I'm looking for,
So you mentioned September, we also have 2 meetings in August. I don't know if
I'd be fine with reserving the second meeting in August as a
Yeah,
potential.
reserve the second meeting.
Cause that helps us plan for the agenda in terms of
August is usually
continuations.
slow for submittal.
So I would say that we can make a motion, I don't know how hard it is to update our calendar online, 'cause that's a pain, to change the the August 24th meeting to,
A
A workshop
workshop,
with no cases.
That work session.
work session.
So there'd be no business taken, just,
We've done that before.
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
So we wouldn't be able to do anything final that night. That night would be to address things which we'd wanna have an agenda in advance, so we have, you know, ideas of what we're gonna be working on, so we make
Yeah,
it
yeah.
very productive.
I like that idea because generally we get to September, October, and we're like, hey guys, don't forget, and then we always, again, it's supposed to become busy months as well, so.
So, Mr. Lemieux, if you can update our online calendar for the August 24th, 2022 meeting to change that, or to say, workshop, no business, or something to that effect. Or just do like you did for March and, draw.
It's good to know now, cause people will be coming in.
Right.
Yeah.
Usually I start saying, well, I can get you on here,
They're
and
either
sometimes
gonna-
I try to put people if you wanna.
Does the website let you like show like recently uploaded, so like they would see there was an updated calendar?
I don't know how necessary, like, I don't know if anyone's like, well, this is different than what I saw 2
Yeah.
weeks ago, you know?
But we do say scheduled, or subject to
Yeah,
change, so.
Big catch-all.
That's-
So let's do that. We'll make sure we have an agenda and action items for that night that to work on. And then last thing, back to Ms. Jones' question, which was great about how many cases we hear on a night. So we do prioritize, so if there's a conceptual on a night, we don't have to hear it. If we have a big caseload, I think our priority is, new applications, continued, new application, public hearings, continued, and then design reviews, and then conceptual. So if we have conceptual, we can push those design reviews, I think we have some leeway with, and then.
But you have the butter notices that
Yeah,
went out,
that's
so you kinda, you have to do something with it. Yeah.
So,
And warrant articles too, we wanna have time for considering
That'll be-
updates.
Might be good to start discussing those ones
I think, yes, we should.
on the 24th.
Everybody start thinking of
It's
what,
gonna be a 3-hour meeting in August.
everybody start thinking about that night.
That agenda filled up real fast.
See how it happens, guys?
We can also start a bit earlier too. We can move it to like a 6:30 night.
That's true, we can
Yeah,
move
we
it
could
out.
start it earlier.
Yeah.
I have a question for the board.
Uh,
As secretary, I am able to pick up some of the slack, or the overflow that Kevin has on his, to-do list. Specifically, I have, the design review development map from Valzoni, from concerned citizens up in that area. I could just forward it to everybody, no discussion, or would that be out of bounds?
Yeah, it's it.
Yeah.
That's the-
That would throw me off.
Yeah, I think anything that's case specific, it's always, I think it's better to have
Following
it
through Kevin.
come through from
Okay.
staff, just
That
to,
was my question, yeah.
yeah, no, I appreciate it, and I appreciate the attempt to, you know, free up, because again, I know we're utilizing our, his time, so.
And will we adjourn?
I second that, before it's time to come back.
So moved, so adjourned, thank you, everybody. Thank you.